Yeah, no, that's real bad. I wasn't even gonna. I saw that and I really just looked past it because like that doesn't even count.
Welcome to Musing. Every once in a while, my brother George and I would have these conversations about music. Music is our passion, and it's a huge part of our lives, and we decided to share those conversations with you. So if you love music, sit back and enjoy this podcast. Okay, welcome back to Musing. Got my brother on the line.
How we doing?
Good. We're going to kind of go on a tangent here today and talk about actors / musicians / actors / musicians, people in the industry of both, came
and
from
why.
one. Yeah, exactly. So sometimes why. Sometimes it is why. When you hear some of the ones on the list, you'll certainly understand why we say it's questionable for some of them. I think we originally talked about this being something we wanted to do initially when we started the podcast, and it's one we finally circled around back to. And I know that some of the ones on the list we're going to talk about, we haven't listened to a lot of their music, and there's some of people that I'm a big fan of. So let's start with the ones that were musicians or actors first, or that kind of dabbled in it. I mean, some of these are going to be kind of weird. Like, I didn't know some of them. I had to look them up. But it was pleasant because I found some music that, wow, I was completely shocked by. Right. Both good and bad. So, I mean, I'm going to go for people that, I'm a big fan of actors, movies in general, and actors. So I'm going to go with kind of one that I'm a big fan of the actor, which is Keanu Reeves.
Oh, you beat me to it.
Yeah. And I mean,
that's kind of the painfully obvious first one, I think, for most of this stuff.
I went back and forth with that. What is it, Jared Leto or is it Keanu Reeves? Which one is it? Because Dogstar's the band that Keanu Reeves played with, and if I'm not mistaken, he played bass.
Yeah.
And
for a few years, like early or late 90s to like mid 2000s.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't like it was hey, I'm just going to jump in and do a song. It was, hey, I've got a band and I really like him. And I read an article where he talked about that, if somebody sees me as an actor and that's what brings them out to the show and they end up liking the music, he's like, whatever, that's all I care is that I want people to hear my music.
Yeah, I read that quote too. I thought that was pretty awesome. That I think that kind of almost solidifies this podcast, because that in a nutshell is kind of someone using their acting prowess to get someone interested in their musical chops. I think is kind of cool, because if you've got it, you might as well use it. That's the way I look at it. Like, hey, I'm an actor, but hey, I also play in a band, and you should, if you like my acting, you should check out the band. And I think that's a pretty classic way of a promotion. But Dogstar was never overly promoted.
No.
Even late 90s, early 2000s was kind of a dumpster fire on the music scene. There was, but there wasn't, there was no real standout. I mean, it was kind of overloaded. I mean, it was the dawn of internet era music and, and things of that nature. And there was a lot of stuff going on, and big bands were, the grunge from the 90s and like new metal movement hadn't really started yet. And there was kind of a gap of, necessary musical void there that wasn't really filled, at least to me.
No, that's it's really a good point, because I think we've talked in the past about transitions and genres of music changing over, and with what was rock coming out of the 50s, blues stuff was a big swing, and grunge was a big swing, and like you said, you move into that 2000 era, and there wasn't a really, like a single movement that came out and just hit hard and kind of took over. It was just kind of a slow meld of rock and grunge into kind of this, post-grunge rock era time frame, and then you kind of moved into
there were bands that came out of that era that, the Corns and Limp Bizkit and, like I said, new metal, just weird stuff that had a small window of, Corn, not so much. I mean, people apparently enjoy Corn, so they've been around for quite a while, but bands came and went, but there's not again, it's just a gray area in the musical landscape for me. Late 90s, very late 90s, early 2000s is kind of and I'm sure there are, epic bands that came out of that era, but as far as, to bring this back around, bands like Dogstar that, Keanu Reeves played in, that era was kind of a meh. Everybody was kind of shrugging their shoulders. I think they were kind of done with grunge, looking for something else, and there weren't really that many bands to fill that huge void yet. And I think maybe they kind of fell through the cracks a shade.
Yeah, I think, and that might have been the downfall of it. Maybe he, maybe had the band been 3 years shifted in one direction or the other, and had the right sound, maybe maybe it would have put them somewhere else. Maybe it would have, I don't know. It's weird because, again, I've listened to I've went and visited their stuff a couple times because obviously when I heard about it, I'm like, I'm a Keanu Reeves fan. I want to see what he's doing. And I wasn't blown away.
No,
it wasn't.
It's average.
Yeah, it was decent. I mean, it wasn't horrible. It wasn't bad.
That's what I said. It's not something I'm going to, but it's not something I'm going to turn off either.
Exactly.
It's like, this isn't horrible, but it's background noise to me. It's really not overly impressive at any position really for me. So
yeah, and but again, it wasn't horrible. It wasn't like you turned it on and said, oh, this is an actor trying to make, to move and make a move, and instead of really caring about music. And I kind of felt that about Eddie Murphy's music when he did the party all was it Party All the Time?
Yeah. I rank those gimmicks like Patrick Swayze, Bruce Willis. I think that's a gimmick. That's not really a But Bruce Willis, I mean,
he's a little bit of a kind of mid-range, but you're right. The other two were, it's just, when I hear those, I go, man, you're just trying to say I'm a musician at that point. It feels,
I think you're just trying to make money or something. Yeah. Because, wow, that's
same thing.
No, that's real bad. I wasn't even going to, I saw that and I really just looked past it because that doesn't even count.
Oddly enough, I didn't see stuff like that. So when I went looking for stuff, I didn't see the odd, one-offs, because the lists I look at were, actually people who cared about it.
Right.
Who cared about making music.
But I don't know if you've got your computer up right now. I'll bet that Eddie Murphy song was probably at least top 20.
Really? You think? I gotta look it up now.
in the 80s, that was probably what, 87, somewhere in there, 86, 7. Like Beverly Hills Cops were huge, and I'll bet that cracked the top 20 because I couldn't turn on a pop radio station back then without hearing that song.
1985.
I was right there, and
it reached U.S. Billboard Hot 100 and made number 2.
Oh, see, I knew it.
So close.
I knew it because I'm serious. That's the actor. That's the only reason that sold, because you couldn't tell the difference between him and Morris Day and the Time or any of those.
Keep going. No, keep going, because I'm going to tell you who wrote and produced the album. Keep
Oh
going.
boy. Oh, I don't even want to know.
Rick James.
Rick James, bitch.
That's
Yeah.
who wrote and produced it.
Oh, that's right. He was in the video even. He
Right.
was running the board in the video. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. Wow. God rest
Yeah.
his soul. Rick
Well,
James.
and like I
Uh,
said, I purposely didn't stumble onto those. I
and
mean, I
yet here
didn't.
we are.
Yeah, well, no, I purposely didn't look for those type of things because I didn't want the one-offs. And it's interesting
Right.
too because I was actually going to bring this up a little bit later, but I'll kind of hit on it now. You know, I saw these groups or these people as musicians and actors. Again, I went out looking for the ones that really cared about their craft, but who cared about writing music.
Right.
And I kind of have a lot of respect for the ones who did it before they were actors, because I know that meant that music was their passion.
Right.
But it's also a different time frame. When you look at guys like Elvis and Frank Sinatra and Judy Garland, who
You had to be
were
both.
yeah, and it was
Yeah.
kind of part of their repertoire. They had to have that to be in movies at that time.
Right.
Uh,
And see, Elvis was on my list. That was kind of my curveball, because that's exactly the point I was going to bring up. Not to interrupt you.
no.
It was almost a foregone conclusion that you sang, you danced, you played an instrument, and you had they didn't have music videos. They didn't have
Right.
MTV back then. They had to find a way to get these people out there and touring. I mean, and there are people that didn't have radios in their homes, let alone TVs in the 50s, when Elvis started, and going back, in the 30s with Fred Astaire and so on and so forth. These people, they had to find a way to get, so they put them in movies, and they sang and they danced and they acted and they they did all these things. So I think that was my thing. You had to be multi-talented to make money or to make yourself famous. To be famous, it was a lot more work back then, and I think that that was my kind of curveball they beat to me, because that I think I look at those people as kind of hybrids. They're not actors or musicians. They're just talented people.
I don't know. Honestly, there was a time period where I sat and watched like every movie I could from the 50s, 60s, and 70s just to kind of eat up stuff. And I watched a couple of the Elvis movies, and
Well, let's be honest. Yeah, they were horrible.
and honestly, I don't think he was one of those people that was the opposite of what we just said with Eddie Murphy. He was thrown into the acting because they're like, hey, you're a singer, but you got a good look. Let's put you on camera. But guys like Frank Sinatra, totally different. I mean,
Right.
Watch those guys in movies, and you're gonna, Sammy Davis and those guys could act and they could sing,
Right.
circles around half the guys singing music today.
Absolutely.
But not to, I was going to get to that track at some point, but I'll kind of circle us back around to someone who I actually didn't know was an actor until after I did a little research into the music, which I actually like 30 Seconds to Mars.
Yeah, that was my second one. I really do too. I think they are very talented. But
yeah, and when I did a little research and looked around, I had literally seen Fight Club like 3 weeks before. Had no idea that was the person in Fight Club.
That's actually one of my favorite scenes in Fight Club.
I guess he spends half the movie, with a distorted face anyways, so it's hard to notice who he is. But I had literally seen Fight Club 3 weeks before I heard one of their songs and went, wow, I really like this band. Who are they? Looked it up. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is like, he's an accomplished actor and he cares about the music. So he's like the perfect fit. And, everybody's going to probably jump to that anyways because he's a big actor and a big band. So
I was going to say that was one of my, the biggest one I had because, I think because of the longevity.
Yeah.
They've put out numerous albums.
And popularity. I mean, it's not like,
right.
Like I'll jump off one and come back. The Bacon Brothers have put out a lot of albums. Really good music. really good music. I've listened to a couple of their albums, really good stuff. But
Yes.
30 Seconds to Mars have that like hits. I mean, they have
Oh yeah,
radio
and radio
play,
play,
constant
right.
hits.
And I
So
think that's because, I mean, when you say the Bacon Brothers, Kevin Bacon, I mean, I think the Bruce Willis, the Eddie Murphy, I think that when you're a leading actor,
right,
see, Jared Leto always
yeah,
come off as a supporting cast. I think that makes a difference.
it does. You're right.
Even with Keanu Reeves, I think that makes a difference. Like if Bruce Willis or Eddie Murphy or Keanu Reeves are in a band or Kevin Bacon, I think it almost diminishes oh yeah, here we go, what's your music sound like? Oh yeah, that's cute, why don't you
yeah,
stick to acting? And vice versa, when someone like Jared Leto, who's always been supporting up until the Joker, Suicide Squad,
yeah,
it was like not, I mean, not a bad actor and major roles, but not a leading man type of thing, like with the rest of these guys. I mean, because what was that? It was a Return of Bruno or something.
The Return of Bruno. Yeah, you're
Yeah.
right.
Um.
That was to not to get too far off, but that was actually going to be one of my parting shots. So
Oh well.
I got to back up. We're good. We're good.
well, as I said, I think we're again. This one was kind of difficult to try to pigeonhole and to go back and forth because there's not a lot of, and especially rock. But I mean, when you say things like that, it's hard to like, when you see Die Hard and then you see him playing harmonica on stage, it's like, yeah, Bruce, maybe you should just go ahead and make another Die Hard movie or whatever. and likewise, like with Elvis, like, man, dude, maybe you should just stick to guitar and shaking your hips because that's going to sell a lot more than Blue Hawaii.
Oh man, that's probably the worst of all of them too.
I know, that's why I said it.
It was the GI Blues was the other one that was the really big hit, I think. But
what
Blue
was
Hawaii
the raise the speed on the? There was one where he was a race car driver too, but
yeah, they're and
and the only reason I know that is because Static X covered Speedway. But
that's right. It's funny. So another one that I really found that I like both, and they also got kind of some acclaim. They actually had a song come out that was actually featured on a TV show, and I was a big fan of this band actually before it got featured on the TV show, anyways. But it's Phantom Planet with Jason Schwartzman in it.
Oh, right.
And I'm a big fan of his anyways. I love the movies he's in. Rushmore he was in Rushmore. Love that movie.
Yeah, it was the Royal Tannenbaums too, right? Was he in that?
No, he wasn't in that one. Same director, but yeah, everything I've seen him in acting has been great, and
Right.
I really like Phantom Planet. And they had that song, was it California? That was in the OC, I think.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and I dug the song. I really did. And again, it kind of felt like that was one of those hybrid people who really cared about the music and cared about his acting career as well.
Right.
He really put a lot of time into both. And if you listen to that album that has Phantom Planet on it, I can't remember the name of the album. I'll have to look it up. But if you listen to that album with Phantom Planet or with California on it, there's a lot of really good, well-written songs on it. But again, I think it also fell into that time frame. I need to look and see when it was, but I think it fell into that time frame, where it was just a lull in both, pop and rock at that time, right. And there wasn't much to, there wasn't much striking out and forging new area. So,
right. When I was researching this, I found out things like Scarlett Johansson, is in a
I didn't
Zoe,
even go there.
Zoe Datchel and so on and so forth. And it's hard to take those things. It's hard to take them seriously.
Yeah, before you go on, 2002 was when California was used.
See,
on
right,
the OC.
right there, 99 to 2005.
Yep.
It's in that gray area.
Uh-huh.
And but I didn't really. And again, it's hard for me to get into. Those were, I clicked on them to see what it was. It's the Zoe Datchel one is like a duet folk kind of.
Yeah, and
You
I've
know,
actually heard some of her stuff, and I actually like her stuff because it's there's a lot
she's
of
very talented.
yeah,
I will say it's not my bag. I'm
yeah.
nowhere close to like, oh, I could just listen to this all day. No, but she's very talented. Her voice is soothing, but it's not something that I'm.
Yeah, if it's in
It's
a lot of
repetitive.
yeah, if it's in a lot of that singer-songwriter stuff that I've been talking to you about lately, that
Yeah.
I listened to a podcast called All Music Considered. It's put on by NPR, and they review a lot of new music. And I'm I'm not a fan, but the quality that she's putting out is
Right.
is
It's hard to
equal with what's
deny.
going on. Right, it's equal with
Right.
what's going on nowadays, and it's
Right.
something that she's passionate about. So,
Right.
you know,
So I didn't want to deny that,
right,
but at
right.
the same time, it's most certainly not my my thing. But
So were there any other ones you had that you saw that maybe that you were familiar with that maybe stuck out and said, "Oh yeah, I'd forgot, but I'd really listened to their stuff and kind of liked it."
yes,
Uh-oh.
one I'm going to break the internet or podcast with, but the one I wanted to preface it with was Fozzy. I don't know if you consider WWE actual acting, but I
Oh boy.
consider it more acting than a sport. And Chris Jericho's Fozzy, I think, is very good.
I actually listened to one of the songs because I saw it. And I'm like, I didn't even know this. Seriously, I didn't even know that was a thing. And went out and looked at it. And I'm like,
Yeah, no, I mean,
what?
uh, he does a lot in the greater Tampa Bay area where I'm based, and um, the music is good. I mean, it's good metal, it's good rock, it's good heavy rock and roll. I mean, it's good music. It's not I'm not a huge fan, but and I don't again, this is kind of I might be stretching the term. I mean, because he started off as a WWE wrestler. But that
That's
is,
spelled with an A.
yeah, um, and two S's. The fact that they call it sports entertainment. I mean, they are acting. They are on camera. They are, it's like kind of. I'd hate to say blur the line a little bit, but the guy is very talented. His band is very talented, and the music is pretty. Again, it's not life altering, but it's pretty good. I mean, if you're looking for something that's radio playable, hard rock or heavy, what they're terming heavy metal nowadays, it's quite good. And I did want to touch on that only because he's making some waves. He's got, I think they have a couple albums now, and
Well, I'll tell you, John from Burke Reviews is going to be very upset with you because he's a big wrestling fan.
no, I know, I understand that, and it's
Well, but
I'm
go
not
ahead.
hating. I'm just saying that as far as actors to musicians, that may be as far as this podcast is concerned, I don't know I mean, I'm not 100% sure if Chris Jericho's been in any movies or TV shows, but I have seen him, on some stuff, and it's been, anyway.
Well, I'll tell you, to tag on to that in the same genre, I stumbled onto something just last night. I was sitting at my desk, just kind of looking through stuff and typing stuff in that I knew, and then looking up stuff that I didn't know. And I'll tell you, I found a gem. And I'm going to pass this to you. It's really, unfortunately, hard to find a lot of the music, but Jada Pinkett Smith sings metal.
See, I saw her on the list,
Dude,
and it said metal, and I laughed and went past it.
Look, I did as well, and I looked it up. The name of the band is Wicked Wisdom, and I went and listened to 3 of their songs. It is amazing.
Really?
Dude, I was shocked. I was floored. It's metal. I mean, it's like
All right. I've never been opposed to new music and trying it, so
I was pleasantly shocked. I really was. I put on the first song and I'm like, it starts out kind of really slow. One of the first song I grabbed, I think it's Bleed is the first one I grabbed, but it starts out kind of slow and I'm like, this is, it's going to be one of those musicians that don't do anything and kind of, or actors that don't do anything in music. I was floored when it kicked in. I was like, wow. Not only was I impressed with her prowess, I was impressed with the music. It actually was It was palatable. It wasn't something horrible. So I would suggest giving it a try.
Wow, yeah, I'll most certainly. I saw that and I read it twice and I laughed. I'm like, there's no way. I say I'm not even gonna indulge in that because it's gonna piss me off.
It was a shocker for me. It was really a shocker.
All right, fair enough.
But in a good way. It really was.
Fair enough.
What else you got on your list?
I will now break the internet, or at least this podcast, and say Dwight Yoakam.
Ah, man, it's look. Okay, so again, when I was watching movies, I lived alone for like 2.5 years, and that's all I did was go to Blockbuster. I mean, if you don't know what Blockbuster is, look it up. But I rented as soon as it came out on video, I rented Sling Blade.
It's epic.
The movie is, you're right, it's epic in its first part. It kind of put Billy Bob Thornton on the map as well.
Sure.
But his part in that movie was they could have put 700 different people in that part, and none of them would have played it as well as he did at all.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. But one of the few country singer, songwriter, musicians that I would use the word enjoy. I mean, the guy is very talented, and he's again. I mean, to me is as country as you can get. I mean, and I'm not a country fan.
Really? Because I think episode 5 pretty much solidified that.
No, I understand
the
that.
ABCs
yes.
of music. That'll clear it up for everybody.
Right. But I'm in no way a fan of country music, but as far as if we're doing musicians and actors and you don't say Dwight Yoakam, it would be a disservice to this podcast.
No, he is definitely an accomplished musician, and again, it's same.
And I think he is lateral. That's a lateral move to be an actor for him because he's very. I mean, even just the brief stint in Wedding Crashers in the beginning of that movie where he's arguing with I can't think of her name. I can see her face. And then when they're arguing at the table about the, divvying up their property or whatever, he's just that guy. It's like almost like that average guy that fits that. But I mean,
I recently watched Logan Lucky, and he's got a small part in it, and he is hilarious. It's
just because he's funny, but the Sling Blade is what sold it for me. I mean, obviously, that was a huge deal because I was blown away. I'm like, and at one point, and if we're in that, Billy Bob Thornton actually has a band too, if we're going to go that route.
Oh, that's right, he does. I totally forgot about it. I didn't even see him on the list either.
Oh yeah, no, I that's one. I mean, we talked off the air or whatever about not having a whole bunch of input as far as these aren't bands or artists that I reach out and look for or listen to. This podcast has intrigued us since the beginning, since we started or talked about doing this.
Yeah.
We talked about it because it seems like an easy reach. But
seems like an easy reach.
Well, because just knowing that Billy Bob Thornton has a band is one thing. Actually listening to it and appreciating it, see if you like it or don't like it, is something that, again, I told, and I'm not ashamed to say, I haven't really delved into a lot of these. I mean, I know they have bands. I've heard some of their stuff. It's like, nah, or I'll move on. 30 Seconds to Mars, extensively. Fozzy, I've heard quite a bit. I have listened to Dogstar and,
Yeah.
But, I mean, I can honestly tell you that, no, Dwight Yoakam is not something that I listen to. But I know that. I mean, I know his musicianship or whatever.
Yeah.
But a lot of these guys, artists, and again, we'll even go back. The Bacon Brothers, I've heard numerous songs, but it's, I laugh when I hear Return of Bruno. When Eddie Murphy's song comes on, I almost have to turn it up and laugh, type of thing.
Yeah,
but
it's certainly
there's a level of that. So it's hard to say. I guess I want to say that this isn't passing judgment on the actor.
No.
Or the
sometimes.
music. Well, a little bit. Dwight Yoakam, I am, but no.
Yeah.
But it's hard to pass judge. This isn't passing judgment. This is to get people, much like the rest of our podcast, to get you involved, to see, oh, I didn't know they had a band, and like Jada Pinkett Smith, I'm going to check that out because I saw it and laughed and moved on, but I'm going to go back and check it out. And some of these other guys, I mean, just give them another listen. Like maybe there's something that I missed, and I'm not going back and revisit Bruce Willis, but there's or even listen to extensive Dwight Yoakam. I'm just saying that that's what these podcasts is for, is to get people interested, to hear, to listen, to find out, to figure out if there's something else that you like.
Yeah.
And to not be so close-minded on anything but country.
Well, exactly. But having said that, I think it's I want to echo off that is, there might be things in your genre of listening that you love that you just don't know about. Like I said,
Right.
I like listening to metal occasionally, and I had no idea that Jada Pinkett Smith sang metal.
Absolutely. No, that's why I agree completely.
And, so now I've got a gem that I can go listen to. In fact, I've already ordered the CD because it's really kind of hard to find her stuff out there. I don't think it's on Spotify. I couldn't find it on Spotify. There's a couple videos out there of them, but actually she was on Jay Leno at one point.
Really?
Yeah, with the band singing, and it was amazing. Like I said, it's really good. Trust me, go listen.
I will. And see, I think that real quick that drags it back to that the actor part can have a negative effect on it. I mean, that is the Eddie Murphy or Bruce Willis effect. I mean, like.
So we're gonna call it Eddie Murphy / Bruce Willis effect.
Well, we can just call it the Eddie Murphy effect.
Okay.
Because his went to number 2. Sorry,
that's true.
That's impressive. True. I don't care who you are. If you're number 2 in the Billboard Top 100 charts, I'm sorry, but you got to throw some respect. I don't care who you are.
It's also right place at the right time, man. That music was really hot right then.
Oh yeah, no. So was he. I think Beverly Hills Cop had just come out, and no, I mean he's probably still getting royalty checks from that one. But all that being said, that I didn't, because, and I don't like being that way. I didn't go look at or listen or try to find Jada Pinkett Smith's metal songs because of Jada Pinkett Smith.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And it's well, and let me turn that into a curve on something I want to talk about too. So, what do you feel about guys like Andy Samberg and Jack Black, who are kind of poking fun at music, but still pretty talented? I mean,
if you watch Interview, Jack Black is not making fun of music.
Okay, he's not. You're right. What I'm saying is the songs are very tongue-in-cheek. Very early AC/DC, lyric-wise.
Yes, but
and Sandberg's, it's very,
Well, yeah, his. But I wanted Jack Black. I love as an actor. I think
me too. I love as a musician too.
Hysterical.
Him and Kyle Gass doing Tenacious D is probably they're on top of my list.
Tenacious D is wonderful.
Yeah,
it is
they are.
So because of the tongue in cheek, because it's like I think they're mocking more of the music industry because because of the Jack Black being, a noted actor, comedic actor, and I think using that to promote, and then to make movies and and so on and so forth, I think is just his role in High Fidelity is far and away my favorite Jack Black role ever, and it's not really a huge role, but I think that is just pure brilliance, on screen brilliance.
Oddly enough, I think one of his first roles is a secondary role in the Jackal remake with Bruce Willis.
Well, that's too bad. Well, we'll let that go. But
I will say that he's definitely look. I tell you, I love to hear them make music. They're not the best at it. They're not the best at
Oh
singing.
no.
They're not the best at playing guitar. But I love to hear them create something. And I'll tell you, I downloaded Rise of the Phoenix video like, well, how about 6, 7 years ago. I still watch that video. That video is amazing. I love that video. If you haven't seen it, go out and check out Rise of the Phoenix video. It's hilarious, and it's good. I mean, it's again, it's not like they're trying to make a rock album, or they're trying to make
Oh
a
no.
folk album, or they're trying to make a comedy album. They're just creating fun stuff, and it's good.
It's just you can't really come up with a better word. It's just good.
Yeah,
I mean, whether you like it or not, it's just good. I mean, he's an average guitar player. He's, but he can actually do some pretty cool things with his voice. I mean,
yeah, exactly.
I mean, his singing voice is not unpleasant,
No,
and it's just good. I
yeah,
mean, and if you're a fan of actors and musicians, Tenacious D is definitely is where you should start, is what I would say, and then find something else from there. But it's just really I wouldn't. I don't know. I think Jack Black is an anomaly. I think he really does. I think he cares about the acting as much as he cares about the music, and
yeah,
the
I
other way
agree.
around. I know that sounds stupid, but I really think he used the acting to do the music, and he uses the music to keep doing the acting. You know what I mean? It's he.
And interestingly enough, I found two anomalies in this. I found you kind of just mentioned the crossover idea, and we actually started out the podcast with that, with talking about Keanu Reeves, who kind of cares about both and pushes one to do the other and the other to do the one. And I'll be honest with you, there was two on the list that I stopped and looked and went, they were musicians once, but they have totally like abandoned it. And don't get me wrong, I love this guy as an actor. But Mark Wahlberg was, yeah. When you look at where he
I
came from,
I guarantee that had to be number one.
uh, I'm gonna have to look it up. But
I would
look, I'm a huge
almost.
fan of his acting. I don't think I've seen a movie in. I mean, he's done some cheesy stuff, some cliche stuff, but I don't think
Yeah,
I've seen him in a movie that I didn't like. I know that
yeah.
sounds bad, but don't tell anybody that. I'll edit that part out. So,
Well,
but
yeah, but I mean, Marky Mark and the Funky Bunch. That's when you. Well, I mean, is
I,
that? But I mean, he started off as a Calvin Klein model, right?
I'm going to look and see where it did hit. Good Vibrations. That's what we're talking about, right?
Oh yeah.
Oh, U.S. #1.
Oh, I would have bet a paycheck on it, because there's no way you haven't heard that song. Anybody that listens to music at some point, hasn't heard that song.
Yeah,
It's
that's.
just
But that's what I was saying is I think those people like that are kind of an anomaly, where they've kind of started in one and went, man, I really like doing this other. I think I'm just going to
yeah,
do this full time.
yeah.
Um, Ice-T had a great career in his genre, but when he left, he left. I mean, he didn't like turn
Body
around and go
Count,
back.
they're still making albums, man.
With him?
Yeah, oh yeah, they got it just come out. Or maybe hasn't come out yet. Or check body count on your computer
Oh
there. I
man,
bet.
I'm way behind on my checking my sources then.
Yeah, no, I mean plus or minus 2 months. It either just come out or they're because I've heard it. It's actually, I'm not a fan because of the
Content.
yeah, I mean ever since Cop Killer, I mean
Wow. Yeah, he was.
I'm
You're
not
right.
I'm just not I'm not on board with the theory. I know it's art and whatever, and I don't judge people. I just choose not to
Right.
because of that. I don't agree with that, and that's just my personal thing. But yeah, no, I mean they got it. They do have a new album with him. It's either it's either right there or just came out.
No, you're right. You're right. I totally thought. Well, I'll skip back to Mark Wahlberg then. He definitely left something behind that he didn't. Probably didn't have a. Doesn't affect me too much. I'm glad he kind of left that behind.
Right. Well, yeah, but I mean, are there many more
What?
that just made the transition and completely excommunicated the other?
That's kind of
That's
what
not something I looked into.
I didn't, and there was a lot of people that came up that I'm not even going to get into at this point because I think I'm just enjoying talking about the ones we've already hit on. But
right,
I think we did hit some that are kind of doing it for fun.
Yeah.
Like Russell Crowe had a band early, and he kind of abandoned that to go into acting, but he still does stuff here and there.
Right.
And it's not big. It's not putting time and effort into it like Jared Leto is. Or Jack Black, or he's put a lot of time into both. And,
Sure.
But I couldn't think of anybody else that kind of got into it, did really good for a minute, and then moved on to just the other exclusively.
Right.
So yeah, but I thought that was an interesting anomaly that stuck out. That he was kind of one of the people that did that. So
yeah, that's true. I mean, I saw, of course, when I was researching, I saw Mark Wahlberg and I laughed and, moved on, but I never really looked at it I was looking at, ones that were doing both or did both continually, once they started the other. So I never really looked at that.
Where they didn't
that
just
way.
turn around and didn't go back.
Yeah.
So we're getting kind of close. I had, I kind of figured with the way we've been doing the podcast lately, we've been doing a lot more research on the specifics. I mean, we care about music and we love music, and I know that, some of the stuff is in our repertoire, period, but we're doing a little more research on what's out there to kind of educate people and help people with it. So in doing that, my parting shots are sometimes, usually taken by the time I get to them. So I set up about 3 just in case, and you obviously hit Bruno Mars, right? Or Bruno, not Bruno Mars, the Return of Bruno, immediately. But I kind of figured that one. So I'll throw one's more of a curveball than it is really a parting shot. So we'll kind of talk on it for a minute, and then I'll just give you the hard parting shot coming out of it. But how about the Monkees?
See, I think that falls into like the Elvis thing.
Kind of, but they almost weren't musicians. But they were.
Well,
but they weren't.
Depends on who you ask or when you ask that question.
Exactly.
Wow.
Yeah, so that was an anomaly as well, and
I think that was a manufactured. At the time, they fit a niche at that time in the 70s where they wanted something. They wanted I don't know how else to tie this together. They wanted a Jack Black, only a band of it. They wanted, funny, campy sketch comedy from the 70s, but they wanted them to play their own instruments and whatever. But whether they did or didn't, I'm not, a couple of them are gone now. I'm not digging that up. But, but I literally just saw, I was scrolling through last night, and I'm not joking. Mickey Dolenz, that poor bastard, is just, he's still on stage as the Monkees, sort of playing guitar, sort of singing. And he was doing the last train to Clarksville, and I'm like, man, that really sucks.
Yeah.
It's bad. And I know, there's just bad blood and weirdness. Throughout that whole, I can't believe they're still around.
But their first 4 albums
probably
number 1
went
on the USA
gold.
chart.
Yeah.
Number 1 on the USA chart.
Yeah.
No. Their first album is 5 times platinum.
Oh, jeez.
Their second album is 5 times platinum.
But see, Davy Jones, he's undeniable. That guy's voice in that era, in that type of music, was gold. It was platinum.
But that's why I was bringing it up, because it wasn't really a parting shot, because I knew you were aware of them. I knew.
But I think I think they were less actors than they wanted to be musicians. They wanted to be musicians, but they forced them to be actors. I think it's kind of how that went, but they weren't either.
But they were really. I grew up watching that show, and I loved that show. It was funny. It was actually had some pretty good writing to it as well.
It was borderline. Without the innuendo, I think it was more like Benny Hill of the Americas.
That's a good way of putting it. So I'll give you the parting shot. I'm not gonna hold it back anymore. You've suffered long enough. So let's go with Miley Cyrus.
Yeah.
No. Daughter of Billy Ray Cyrus, Hannah Montana.
Yes, I was just gonna say, I think she went. That could be. The other one of the other Mark Wahlberg, because she hasn't really went back to acting, has she?
A movie here and there.
But let's be honest. I mean, she's not really a musician.
Hold on. Whoa.
No. She is. I'm sure you can look it up right now. I know you're looking it up right now. I'm sure she's sold 10 trillion albums.
That's probably that. Look, I was going to say that's going to be an exaggeration, but you might actually be right.
It's probably relatively close. It's unfortunate, but I'm sure it's not. I'm sure she's multiple times platinum albums. Obviously, I'm not a fan.
Yeah.
But you were on a skit for a while there. You really enjoyed. You liked her voice, liked the music, right? Or is that?
No, it was actually her counterpart, which was, I'm gonna blank on her name. What's the other girl that was at the same time? Kind of between Britney Spears and her. It was, what's her name? God, I'm blanking on her name. Totally blanking on her name.
Yeah, I got nothing.
Simpson? No. God dang it.
Jessica Simpson?
No, it was.
Oh.
Anyways, regardless,
the parting shot. Yes, it's undeniable. Whether just like Dwight Yoakam, whether you like it or not, Miley Cyrus was, Hannah Montana, and is a ridiculously worldwide huge pop star.
Oh gosh, she's in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2.
Well.
It's got to be a small part, but.
But that being said, no, it's again. I'll use Dwight Yoakam again. It's an undeniable force. Whether we like it or not is immaterial.
Right.
Obviously, people do. She does fit this genre, and I've never even watched a whole commercial for Hannah Montana when that was on, and I most certainly have never listened to anything that she's done in the pop world, because that's not my bag. I mean, I've heard some of her music, but it's not. I turn it off immediately, and even if someone else is listening to it. But
and that's why it's a parting shot.
Exactly. No, I don't even understand it. I'm not a fan of that bubblegum pop.
Christina Aguilera was who I was trying to remember.
I guess maybe I shouldn't say I'm not a fan of bubblegum pop. Christina Aguilera is one very talented vocalist.
That's what I said. That's what I was kind of dipping into at that time. But yeah, she is an amazing vocalist.
She can. I'm not even a little bit of a fan of her music, but girlfriend can wail. There's no doubt about that. I'm not a fan of that scat type of singing, where they change pitch rapidly in succession like that. But she's got some pipes. She can get after it, but I'm not a fan of the music. But there is some talent there, and there's talent all over in every genre. I know we go over this once in a great while, but I've said it. I even said it in that whatever it was, number 5 podcast there about country. There are talented singer, songwriter, musicians in every genre.
Yeah.
How they're produced, how they're what's the word I'm looking for? How they're dealt with, how they're put out there. Promoted. Thank you. How they're produced, how they're promoted, how they're sold to us is an unfortunate reality with music in our society. Because if I'm not sold on Jada Pinkett Smith being a metal artist, I've never heard it. I'm never looking for it. You know what I mean? And it's never been something that's even ever shown up on my radar before. I looked at it, a couple
Yeah.
days ago, and it will now. And I think that's the good part. But if it's not going to be promoted, if it's not, I know we've talked about this at great length too, that there's never been anything that I'm not willing to listen to if you like it. If somebody tells me, because people telling us about different music or music that they like, that's what feeds this. That's why this podcast is on.
Yeah.
That's why we get up early and record this, to put it out there, to help people. And I say help people, but I mean to get people in on some new stuff.
Yeah.
That's why our last podcast, with Pete Pardo, he reviews all these new albums, and I started following him and look and Sea of Tranquility and seeing what they had and seeing what he was reviewing and listening to some of the stuff. Some of it I like, some of it I don't like. Some of it's intense, some of it's not so much. Some of it's good, some of it's bad to me. But he's, I think, a lot like us, and that's why he's been on. He's been the only multiple guest. But we've had, drummers from, I'd hate to say lighter rock, but the lighter side of rock. I mean, Dishwalla and so on and so forth, aren't, black metal or doom metal or anything by that stretch of the imagination. But we run a gambit. I mean, we have literally run a gambit from Miley Cyrus to, Sepultura. There's a line of everything in between. Nothing is out of bounds or off limits, but trying to get people to realize that this is opinion driven, but your opinion matters too. Musing feedback at gmail.com is an easy way to get a hold of us, to let us know what you're listening to, what you want us to listen to, why you think Miley Cyrus is the best pop star in the world, and why you think, I shouldn't be so hard on Dwight Yoakam. Whatever you want to do, get with us.
Or what you want to hear. If you
or
want
what you want to hear.
Yeah, if you want
Sure.
us to hear something, you want us to talk about something that you're passionate about,
Absolutely.
tell us, hey, here's a great idea for a podcast. You guys can take this, run with it, do whatever you want. And, not to get, too far off that, because I think what you said kind of epitomizes our podcast and our feelings towards music in general. But I think the same way. I think, I've learned a lot through this podcast.
Sure.
And I initially started this podcast to talk about the things that we already knew. And we've done that once or twice. And, there was a couple early episodes, like episode 1 and 2 of this were very poorly produced. It was more it's more like, hey, let's try this and see if it works. So I think we're going to go back and revisit those at some point in the near future. But I think that's a good spawning point of what what I wanted to say about this podcast is we got into it because we wanted to talk about the stuff we love to talk about, and we do. We still love to talk about the stuff we love to talk about.
Absolutely.
But I've learned so much about different genres, different people, different musicians, different just by both you doing research and talking to me, and me doing research and talking to you, and sometimes we meet in the middle, but there's spots that we talk about that I'm like, wow, that's something I totally never thought about. Jada Pinkett Smith singing metal. Would have never. Right. I don't think I could have probably spent the next 20 years listening to music and delving into different music.
On it.
Nope, never would have never stumbled on it if we hadn't put something like this episode together, where I would have done specifically searched that. So.
Right. And there are people out there that definitely, I mean, they live for those actor, musician, actor, types and wait for it, and are sniffing that stuff out.
Yeah.
Whereas, it's not really on our radar unless we're like, oh, let's do that podcast, or whatever it is. And again, this is all our opinion.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of it. Everybody's got one. I think through the course of this, that's been it's helped me a lot too, because it's forced me to look outside my comfort zone, or to I mean, and I think the research part of it is fun. I mean, yes, we normally talk about what we know, but this podcast is also not only hopefully helping other people find new stuff, but it's also helped us find new stuff.
Yeah.
Because, like I said, just doing research, you and I, for the podcast that we do, we found, you found Jada Pinkett Smith, and, you unfortunately reminded me of Eddie Murphy's musical prowess. So,
or lack thereof.
It's all out there. It's a sick, sad world sometimes, but laugh and enjoy it, because that's what the music's about, man. Music changes lives for me, and anything new or exciting or different or whatever, I'm willing to check out. And I think that's what this, and I think to put a big bow around this podcast, I think that's what artists, as far as musicians that want to act or actors that want to play music, I think that's for them too. They're looking for that next fix. They're looking for something to challenge themselves, or find a new way to express their creativity, and in a minor way, so are we. Because I'm always down for new music, and if it's Jada Pinkett Smith, well, I'm not ashamed to say I'd rather listen to Jada Pinkett Smith than Miley Cyrus. So,
well, you report back to me on that when you listen to it. 'Cause I'm telling you, you're gonna be
maybe
shocked.
Maybe that should have been your
my parting shot.
Your other podcast idea.
Oh yeah, could have, yeah, yeah, could do that. No,
but
yeah, that's a foreshadowing. Yeah. So,
well,
you know
we
what?
got some good stuff coming up, though.
Yeah, exactly. I was just going to
say.
Yeah, that's going to be a fun one. Anyways, well, we'll catch up next time. And you listen to Jada Pinkett Smith, and I guess I'll be listening to a weird album, and maybe we'll do some reporting back.
Absolutely.
I'll catch up to you next time then, brother.
All right. Thanks, brother.
Yeah, see ya.
See ya.
We want to talk to you about music, so reach out to us at musicmusingfeedback@gmail.com.
You can also find us on most social media sites by searching Music Musing or George or Craig Seibert, Sybert.
And you can also find us on Twitter as musicmusing_ as well.
Thank you for listening to this Music Musing podcast.